Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Peace and blessings of Allah be upon you all. Welcome to our weekly Islam 101 session. I'm your brother Jamal. We are here at virtually at the Islamic Institute of Orange County. I'm actually here on site, but I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, of course, are joining us virtually. So I want to thank you very much for taking time out on this beautiful Sunday and being here with us for this session, as we do every Sunday, right? Our Islam 101 session from roughly 1:35 to about 2:10, 2:15 p.m., where we try to take a something basic in Islam, whether it's some statements of the Prophet Muhammad, may God's peace be upon him, or some verses of the Quran, or some topics such as patience, etc., and have a discussion on that. So it's very important for us to make sure that we keep building on the foundation of our faith, and of course having consistency with it. So thank you all very much. So with us today is our dear Shaykh Jibreel Speight. Shaykh Jibreel is the Director of Muslim Life at Chapman University in Orange, California. He's also one of the seminary instructors at IOK, which is the Institute of Knowledge, of course, in Diamond Bar, California. He's been supporting us, being part of our program for a while now. We really appreciate it. So Shaykh Jibreel, assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. Let me add you on here.
Wa alaikum salam rahmatullah.
Glad to have you on with us.
All right, alhamdulillah, thanks.
How are you doing, Shaykh?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm just trying to enjoy this this time.
Exactly. Yeah. Alhamdulillah. All thanks to Allah. We're trying to do our best, right, with the time that's given to us.
That's right.
Utilize it as best as possible. So we appreciate it. All right, brothers and sisters, and of course, dearest guests, I want to welcome you again. So we're going to go to about 2:10, 2:15 p.m. Shaykh Jibreel Speight will be continuing on the topic that he had over the last few sessions, and that is taken from the prophetic example, and talking a little bit more about it, elaborating on it. And Shaykh Jibreel will go ahead and do that for us, and then we'll leave about maybe 5 minutes at the end. Should you folks have any questions regarding the topic at hand, feel free to submit that in the chat box, and then we'll go ahead and get those questions over to Shaykh Jibreel Speight. So Shaykh Jibreel, my beloved, the virtual floor is all yours.
In the name of Allah, or in the name of God, the most merciful, the bestower of mercy, praise belongs only to Him, and and may blessings and peace be upon the one who's been sent as a mercy to all, the Prophet Muhammad, and upon his family, his companions, and those that strive to follow them excellently until the day of judgment. Recently, I had a conversation with a brother, a Muslim, who is going through some struggles right now. He's been tested pretty hard, unfortunately, and looking at it from afar, I can't relate to what he is going through. So in situations like that, I just listen and just give an ear, if you will, and let people in a situation like that walk through and talk through their issues. And the brother said something to me today that ties into our topic, and which is related to the macro level topic. He said to me, he asked me, his question was, who is going to help me? That's what he asked. He asked, who is going to help me? He's going through all this stuff and trials and everything, and he's concerned about his financial situation, and he's worried about his situation and he's going to eventually, he might have to make some changes as far as his housing and his residency and what have you, and other personal things he's going through. But the question that got me was his question of, who's going to help me? I've heard this question many times by Muslims. I hear from non-Muslims all the time. I hear from Muslims too. And that question goes to the topic, which goes to the macro level topic. The macro level topic we've been talking about, well, you and I, is the advice that the Prophet Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, gave to his young nephew. And we've been talking about Allah or God safeguarding his servants. And we talked a few, one or two, or maybe three aspects, if you will. But I want to talk about one particular aspect today that I think is very important as the world keeps changing, society keeps changing. We always seem to be bombarded with all these different issues, which is the Allah safeguarding against our doubts and our desires. Allah's safeguarding against our doubts and our desires. And that's something, that question is a classic example of somebody who has been tried and at that moment forgot about the fact that it is more than possible for Allah to be there for the individual, but the person has to have a deep resolution that if that person does her or his job as a servant to Allah, that doubts and desires will be guarded against. During a person's lifetime, Allah or God preserves the servant's religion and faith by safeguarding that person against evil doubts, misguided innovations, and unlawful desires. And we have these things called desires. We have concerns. All of us do. Right now, I have concerns. You have concerns. Jamal has concerns. Right? And as new Muslims, particularly, look, that's a reality. You're going to go through concerns. You're going to go through some problems. All right? This is not a fairy tale here. All right? You accept Islam, or if you are someone who has rededicated yourself to Islam, be aware of the fact that that's a fantastic thing. But understand that this whole life that we live in, this life is a test, which means that we're going to be going through some things. Worry is a test. Being worried about something is a test, by the way. Worried about one's health, worried about one's economic situation, worried about. So we've been talking about just the second piece of advice, which is the first one was to protect and preserve Allah or God. Second part, He will protect and preserve you. We've been talking about that. And we are now looking at another facet of that, which is how, or first of all, the possibility of God protecting or safeguarding a person from desires and doubts. And I gave you a story about that, and other stories as well have occurred. There was a prophetic tradition. I think it's suitable for this time period. I mentioned the time period too when we did coffee with the Shaykh maybe a couple of Fridays ago. I don't really remember right now. But I talked about my reminder was about time. We talked about how in the Islamic calendar, we are in the 7th month of the Islamic calendar. Next month will be the 8th. And then after that, we fast the holy month of Ramadan. And we ask Allah, we ask God to make it easy upon us, to grant us success to be able to reach the month of Ramadan and fast it the best fasting possible. So we're in the 7th month. And we're getting closer to the end. As a matter of fact, I think we're in the looks like we're in the 23rd, the last week of the 7th month. And scholars have talked about the fact that this is the month where servants of Allah, and I'm going to just say Allah moving forward, okay? We're servants of Allah, if you will. It's like a person that has a garden. They plant their seeds, and the seeds here are righteous deeds. The seeds are righteous deeds. And then next month is the idea of watering those seeds. And then the following month, you get the actual harvest and you reap the benefits of the harvest. There is a prophetic tradition I want you to pay attention to that sort of works with this right now. And it works with the whole idea God willing, Allah willing, with regarding to safeguarding doubts and desires. It says that when death comes to a person, all of us are going to experience death. It said to the angel to smell his head. And I may have mentioned this tradition before, but I think it's important to mention it again. It said to the angel, it will be said to the angel to smell his head. The angel will say, I smell the fragrance of the Quran. It will be said, smell his heart. And the angel will say, I smell the fragrance of fasting. That's why I'm mentioning it particularly. It will be said, smell his feet. And the angel will say, I smell the fragrance of the night prayer. Quran, fasting, night prayer. Quran, fasting, and night prayer. These are three things that we should really try to increase as we are hopefully going to have an opportunity to be honored to fast the month of Ramadan. And these are the means of helping us, i.e., reading the Quran, fasting, and praying night prayers, not the obligatory or the mandatory night prayer. I'm talking about the prayers afterwards. It goes on and says, the angel will say, or rather it goes on and says that he safeguarded himself, so Allah, the mighty and magnificent, safeguarded him. All right. So this person took the time out to know more about the Quran. All right. And knowing the Quran, you understand, taking time out to read the Quran, right? And we're talking about here for English translation, obviously for all of you, but you can get benefit from reading the translations, all right? Reading the translations and really thinking about what's going on there, what's being said there, what are the messages being conveyed. When a person starts doing that, when a person starts thinking about these things and not just having it on the shelf or not just reading bits and pieces, but I encourage all of you to go do the translation from cover to cover. You finish, do it again. You finish, do it again. You finish, do it again. I hope you get the idea. So when you read the Quran or translation or meaning of the Quran, get yourself a little notebook. And start taking notes. Start writing stuff down, like a little journal. And ask yourself questions. Maybe the first time it won't come to you. Then maybe the second time it will. The third time and the fourth time. Because this will help you and me develop a deeper understanding of what's the message or what are the messages my Lord wants me to get. Number one. With regards to fasting, key thing about fasting is that fasting, you see, and you're going to hear this hopefully in other lectures, not by me, but more knowledgeable people that talk about the objectives of fasting. It is not an exercise of being healthy; that's a byproduct. But the ultimate objective of fasting, whether it's mandatory or otherwise, is what? To develop a higher level of God consciousness. And that means that a person, when fasting, seeking that particular objective, means that the person is seeking and striving to remove the clothing of any doubts and weaken, if you will, or contain, or tame the desires that a person may be enduring or going through. And we all got them, right? We all got them. And then there's the night prayer. The night prayer. For those of you that have been blessed with a day job, there's an opportunity on you right there in front of you to start making some changes in your life. Many of us have video streaming and what have you. That's fine. I'm not going to talk to you about all that. All right. But when do you stop looking at that? Or maybe ask you a different way. What time do you go to bed? I'm talking about those people that work the usual day job. We'll talk about the people who work at night in a minute. For you that have that has a day job, question is that What time you go to bed? Okay. What you do before you go to bed? Okay. That's a question. I don't know what you're doing. And then, can you see yourself getting up, let's say a half an hour before the dawn prayer? Before you say, no, I can't do it, be careful, because you probably can. It's not about that you can't. It's more, maybe it's more of a thing of, well, maybe you just don't want to. The benefit of night prayer is that ordinarily, it's quiet as time. It's quiet. Yeah, we live in a country where you got dogs barking and, people got their light pollution and everything. But let's assume that for the most part, there's a time where, this time period right here, maybe I can get up and do some thinking, and particularly some night prayer. And particularly, it is usually the best time. It is the best time because a person has an opportunity to have a conversation with Allah. Nobody around, people, and you know how it is. And you have an opportunity on your shoulders. For those that work the night shift, you got a night shift on you. I would encourage you, if there's a moment of time where you can, if you can, and you're in your office or wherever that you are, consider, even if it's just for 10 minutes. All right. There's another tradition that states that in the last third of the night, right, Almighty Allah or God descends, and we don't know how that really is, in a manner befitting His Majesty, wherein He's asking, and He already knows, but He wants to know who's out there praying to me, so as I can answer that individual. So you got some time here. If you work the night shift, maybe you can put 10 minutes of your time aside and just kind of, sit down for a minute and just kind of, ask, Allah, I just ask you, give me the good of this life and the hereafter, protect me from the hellfire. Finish. But you mean it sincerely, right? That's all you got to do. All right. And little by little, God willing, things will open up for you. You don't know unless you try. Right. We have an authentic prophetic tradition as well that I like to present to you, wherein a companion said, the Prophet Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, taught me something to say just before I go to bed. And this is something that I need to practice more of, and I share this with you as well. So if you're taking notes, then take notes. And if I don't know if Jamal wants to dictate this while I'm typing it, I don't know. But here we go. Oh Allah, if you are to take my soul and bestow mercy on it, and if you are to grant it a time period, protect it with that which you protect your righteous servants. Let me say it again. Oh Allah, if you are to take my soul, have mercy on it or bestow mercy on it, and if you are to grant it a time period, protect it with that which you protect your righteous servants. It's a little prayer for you to have. Keep that in your toolbox. And note that the prayer talks about what? It talks about two things that are very, very critical. Number one is the fact that we're not guaranteed tomorrow. The first thing that was said was that, upon going to sleep, if you take my soul, because in Islamic thought, in Islamic faith, sleeping is a type of death. It's a type of death. It's a type of death wherein you might get your soul back. You might not get your soul back. All right. And so the Prophet Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, is teaching his companions, look, this is what you say. So we see in this prayer the belief that everything is with Allah, everything, life, death, and everything in between. Number two, that there's no guarantee upon sleeping that you'll wake up. So the servant is asking for Allah's mercy, which that in it by itself is an indication that the person has no doubt that Allah is the most merciful. Because there are people out here who think otherwise, like this conversation that I had earlier, right? And then the other part of the prayer was the fact that the soul could return, and that the servant who makes this prayer recognizes that the person might be going through trials and tribulations and tests and everything. Tests, we just call them tests throughout the life tests and what have you. What happens is that this particular servant recognizes that the tests that I go through, okay, I go through them, but protect me. Protect me from having doubt in you, O Allah. Protect me from having a wanting to follow my desires and not follow you. That's why the sentence protected, in other words, my soul protected with that which you protect your righteous servants. This part of the prayer as well indicates that a person saying this has a longing to want to be like the righteous servants and understands that righteous servants have certain characteristics. One of them is that they really work hard to tame their desires and they don't have any doubt in Allah, no doubt whatsoever. We move on. And we have other prayers as well, but here's one for you as well, wherein the Prophet Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, used to, whenever he would bid farewell to a traveler, he would say to the traveler, I consign your religion, trust, and your final assertive deeds to Allah's care. All right. And another narration says, when Allah consigns something to his care, he protects it. So it's as if to say that, and you can also use this as well when we depart from one another, we say Assalamu alaikum. We also can say, in addition to that, I consign your religion to Allah's care. I consign your religion to Allah's care. Because when you say something like that, you see, you are hoping that Allah will safeguard and protect a person's religion. So we see a very good thing with regards to etiquette, with regards to one another. Another way, so then we learn making prayer and the different things we talked about and fighting our doubts and desires is also praying for one another. You know, it's also praying for one another and saying to one another, you know, may Allah safeguard your religion. May God safeguard your religion. Another narration we have here, another prophetic tradition, we find the Prophet Muhammad saying that when a servant prays the prayer as it should be prayed, I want you to pay close in this one. When the servant prays the prayer as it should be prayed, and before we go any further, the most beloved actions to Almighty Allah are those actions that He has deemed mandatory. And then after that, a person does extra actions of devotional worship to the point that eventually they reach a level where Allah loves that individual. So keep this in mind, all right? So when the servant prays a prayer as it should be prayed, it goes up to Allah. Having rays like the rays of the sun. And as it's going up, it says to the performer of the prayer, may Allah preserve you as you have preserved me. However, if a person was lax and lazy sloppy with their prayer. Didn't really care much about it. Allahu Akbar, finish. All right, what happens that it'll be wound up like an old garment, right? It'll be wound up like an old garment and is wound up and then used to strike the face of the performer while saying, "May Allah waste you as you have wasted me." Now, one of the key things then to having firmer resolve and a greater ability to tame one's desires is the prayer. Not just the how, but the method, the way of doing it, taking it seriously. One time, a man said to one of the great scholars of the past, said to him, "May Allah preserve you and protect you." And the scholar said, "My brother, don't ask that I be preserved. Instead, ask that my faith is preserved. So may Allah preserve all of your faiths." All right. Well, we're done with the issue of preserving. This is what I want to present to you concerning preserving one's doubts. How Allah safeguards one's desires and doubts by giving you some things to think about to kind of get you started, and myself as well, with respect to that. Brother Jamal, are you with me? Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Yes, sir, Sheikh Jibreel. Thank you so much. Excellent. I really appreciate it. There was a comment, yeah, Sheikh Jibreel, if you can kindly repeat that supplication that you initially had made, which we put on the screen there.
Sure, absolutely.
Do that. This is from, I believe, Ty Black had requested that. That's okay.
Yeah, sure, no problem. The supplication says as follows: "O Allah, if you are to take my soul, have mercy on it. And if you are to give it additional time, protect it with that which you protect your righteous servants." Protect it with that which you protect your righteous servants. With that which you protect your righteous servants.
Sheikh Jibreel, thank you so much. And I want to welcome everyone that's tuning in, and they might have tuned in right when we had started as well. So a number of people are leaving comments. So I thank you all very much. If you're, of course, either streaming this live on Facebook or on YouTube, we welcome you, brothers and sisters and dearest guests. We have with us Shaykh Jibreel Speight. Sheikh Jibreel is the director of Muslim Life at Chapman University and also one of the seminary instructors at IOK, which is Institute of Knowledge. So we're honored to have him here with us in a session that he's continuing. Today was another part of that continuation of that session. So brothers and sisters and dearest guests, of course, if you have any questions pertaining to the topic that was discussed here today, feel free to leave that in the chat box here, and we'll go ahead and get that over to Sheikh Jibreel. Sheikh Jibreel, you mentioned something earlier, and I had a question earlier as well before this session. There was another. We had one of the local churches. They requested that we have a presentation because of the virtual reality we're living in. They would come and they would tour the mosque, or we would actually go to their church and conduct an Islam 101 presentation. So very polite, very courteous people. And they asked regarding the Islamic perspective on tests. Let me back up 2 steps, because you talked about evil and about maybe children dying of a young age and hunger and COVID-19, etc. How does Islam see all this through the lens of a Muslim? How do we see this? Of course, you mentioned, life is a test. I was just wondering, if you don't mind, if you can just maybe give us a little bit more, if you could talk to us a little bit more for those people that might be joining us for the first time, or they might have recently converted to Islam and they're going through a number of challenges and tests. Maybe if you can just help us out a little bit more. You did a great job earlier, of course. Just want to make sure those people that came in at the tail end, they also hear that as well.
Sure. The first thing that we have to be aware of is that Allah explicitly states the following. You can find this in the 67th surah or chapter 67, verse number 2. It's there he says very clearly, he is the only one that creates death and life to test each of you to see who will excel or who will perform excellently with their deeds. That's explicit. In the 21st chapter, verse number 35, it is there that Allah says, every soul tastes death. Every soul tastes death. And we test all of you with evil and good as a trial, and all of you will return back to me. Now we see that it's been laid out that this is the way of Allah, that he is going to, when he creates us and we have the ability to understand life, etc., that we're going to go through trials and tribulations. So as believers, we accept that. We should accept that. Now then, next question might be, okay, and I'm sorry, with the trials, at times, Brother Jamal and others, everybody looks at the so-called negative aspects of tests. Tests are both good and bad. It could be that on the surface, something looks very negative, but beneath that, there's a lot of good. Or opposite. It could be something on the surface is, wow, great, but behind it or underneath it, there is some things behind it that are not very good. The coronavirus has been a test for all of us. It's been a trial. News media keeps telling us about how many people dying, everything. The numbers are going down, et cetera, and what have you. Now there are vaccines and all that and everything. And people look at that, but I have also, me, myself anyway, I have indicated something. I have realized that, in spite of this trial, this contagion, right, there has been good that has come out of it. Good in various levels. The exposing of the socioeconomic other things that we're seeing and whatnot. So it's not like, and I think this is very important to keep in mind, that sometimes the tests are going to be a certain way. Let me share something with you, a prophetic tradition that I was going to share later on, but I'll share with you right now. There is a prophetic tradition that says the following. Allah the Mighty and Magnificent says, there are some of my servants whose faith can only be made good through via poverty. Let me say that again. There are some of my servants whose faith can only be made good by way of poverty. if I were to give them and open up freely wealth, then their faith, or his or her faith, would be ruined. There are some of my servants whose faith can only be made good through affluence, in other words, a higher socioeconomic status. And had I afflicted them with poverty, then their faith would be destroyed. Some of my servants, their faith, or amongst my servants, are those whose faith can only be made good enough, or good through health. Because if I were to make them sick, they would lose faith. And there are some of my servants whose faith can only be made good through illness, because if I were to make them healthy, they might destroy their faith. And there are some of my servants who seek to do an act of worship, but I stop that individual, all right, because the act they are going to do would be rejected because they don't have any sincerity behind it. I regulate the affairs of my servants in accordance to my knowledge of what is in their hearts. I am the all-knowing, the all-aware. It's another way of looking at this idea of testing. That is to say that when it comes to our trials that we go through, we don't really see everything. We don't really see everything. We only see what's in front of us. And this is something actually that those who are of the other two major religions, Judaism and Christianity, if they were to pay close attention, they also know that there's a lot of stuff we just don't have any control over. All right? People ask, why do we have evil? Well, alaikum salam. People ask, why do we have evil? Well, the question is, why do we have people that don't reject evil? Why do we have people that just stay quiet about evil? See, you can't just simply say why there's evil. There's also good. You understand? So it's not enough to simply say, why do we have evil? We have evil for what? For what purpose? We have evil for the purpose of what? For people to stand up and say, oh, this is not right. But how many people actually are willing to do such a thing? You understand? I'm not going to talk about international. Talk about here in the United States of America. Okay? Too many times people ask this question, but fail to ask. And then there's a presumption that, God made a mistake or something. All right? So things happen the way they do due to the knowledge of God, of Allah, the most aware, the most knowledgeable. A lot of stuff we don't take into consideration. And when things are bad, for example, the question at hand is, well, then, where are the people that are trying to do good? Are you one of them? Or are you sitting back and just asking? All right, that's another question then. I hope that this gives you something to think about, Brother Jamal, and whoever asked the question, inshallah.
Yeah, no, excellent. Thank you so much, Shaykh Jibreel. Also, I think another blessing of a test, of course, is the opportunity that the test gives us to show our true colors, right? And responding
Absolutely.
back. It's kind of like how you mentioned. So if people are in hunger, the test is for everyone in that. How can I respond to that test? I can give back. I can help, So test is, very positive that, as you had said as well, that, for many people, the test is supposed to bring you closer to Almighty God, to Allah, not bring you further from God. The test.
Well, there's something else too, if I may interject, which is that, okay, I'll use IIOC as an example. You've been having food drives, which is a great thing, right? In cooperation, I think, with other organizations and what have you. Here is something I hope that will continue. After the contagion and God willing has been contained and people have been going through their vaccinations and everything, here's a question that you or the mosque and other organizations, whether they be Muslim or not, here's a question. What are you going to do afterwards? Are you going to continue? Now, I don't expect you to answer the question, but I hope you understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
When people go through these trials that seemingly are not positive, they're terrible, that's when people, in order for people, one way of people to get through the test is for other people to come in and say, look, Give me your hand so I can walk you through. All right. When that happen, when it doesn't happen, the people that had the ability to assist, oh no, they're blameworthy too. They are blameworthy too because they had the ability to assist. You know, and God knows best.
No, great point. Great point. Point well taken. That's our hope here. Specifically, I can speak at IIC to make sure that we're able to address, whatever concerns there are in the community. That's how this food drive and the diaper drive. And to be honest, and you and I both know, Jeff, it's not enough, man. Once a month, twice a month, 3 times, it's not enough. People go hungry every
Right.
day from morning to night. So as I said so many times, I'm so happy that the mosque is open and different houses of worship are open to help the community. But it really breaks your heart when you see these long lines, as how it was yesterday, the same long lines, and it's like, sometimes you see the same people coming. Unfortunately, because you wouldn't wait in line for an hour or two if you didn't need that assistance. Meaning, like,
Yeah.
people, for many of us, maybe, we might have the luxury of opening up our fridge and, having 2, 3, 4 different types of cheeses and juices and this and that. There are people that are just getting literally paycheck to paycheck, meal to meal. And until you experience that, I give an example. Last time, I literally had to hold the diapers just so I can understand. I'm like, this pack of diapers is actually going to a child or 2 or 3 that will be utilizing it probably within the next hour.
Mm.
And until you personalize that, having kids myself, until you internalize that, it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling,
That's
especially
right.
living in this part of the county, or many people are maybe affluent or whatever it might be. There's still people just down the road that are struggling,
That's right.
So your point is well taken, of course. These services, unfortunately, there will still be people that are hungry after the pandemic. There will still be people facing racial injustice after, so it shouldn't just stop there. It should keep going, and we should keep, if you will, applying the pressure positively,
True.
and just making sure that communication is there. So
Indeed,
thank you.
brother. Indeed, alhamdulillah.
Thank you so much. All right, brothers and sisters, we went a little bit over, but I hope it was a benefit to everyone. I don't see any more questions or comments here, but I do thank you all for leaving your comments and your responses here in the chat box, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube. We really appreciate you spending your your Sunday afternoon here with us. I really appreciate it. And if there's no other comments here on the chat box, we will see everyone this coming Friday. Just a few announcements, before we call it an afternoon. Number one, we have our sisters social session or hour coming. We call it the second hour. The first hour, or the first session was, and this is Sheikh, the sisters are applying a little bit of positive pressure, and saying, look, we need a session online for the sisters only, so they can have it, just kind of hang out, which is great. So we did that in the first session, went really well. So this is the second session, or the second hour, specifically for our convert sisters. So the registration did go out via email and on our WhatsApp group. So please go ahead and register. I believe that's coming up this coming weekend. So 1 week from, I believe it's Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. But the information will be on there for that. And number two, I just want to remind everybody regarding our one-on-one mentorship program, which is very important. So for our convert brothers and sisters, or people that might be recommitting themselves back to the faith, keep in mind we have a mentorship program here where we have mentors that went through a training that want to work one-on-one with our brothers and sisters to teach them the basics of Islam based on a program and curriculum that we have. So we have sent the information out, of course, in the welcome email that everyone gets. And for most, if not all, of our convert brothers and sisters, we have spoken to them about this program. So just wanted to bring that back up, because I know for some people they might gradually want to get into it, and that's perfectly fine and understood. We don't want to overwhelm anyone, but please do keep in mind this is a free service that's there. Keeping in mind we have enough mentors, right? We're blessed. We have many people embracing. We want to make sure we have enough mentors to keep up that as well. So please reach out to us should you want to explore more on our mentorship program, which I highly encourage for everyone. All right. Well, Shaykh Jibreel, thank you so much, man. Allah bless you, reward you, preserve your faith, and preserve you and your family. We really appreciate it.
Amen. All of you too. All of you too. Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much, brother. Thank you for your time, brothers and sisters. I'll talk to you soon, Allah willing. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you. I'll take care, everyone.
Assalamu alaikum.